Puppies chasing butterflies.
So cute.
Okay, this is Jules.
What? Oh.
This is Jules.
Hi.
And Lenny.
Hi.
And Lenny's just watched a dog chase a butterfly and then swallow it, which is kind of cute.
It's so cute.
I'm not into blood sports.
What? Oh, come on, puppies chasing butterflies. So cute.
Okay.
And now the dog is playing with his teddy bear.
Yes,
Okay.
I believe you have a teddy bear as well, don't you?
And on to the next. What was your question?
All right. So what we're talking about today is the idea of the gender spectrum and how some websites have a real challenge. And I know FionaDobson.com does this very, very well, where we are looking at some people who just like to cross-dress occasionally, other people who are actually fully on the way to transition. Now, we've been doing some things around product reviews and a few other things which are really interesting. But what were you saying about GlamourBoutique.com?
Oh,
You liked one thing particularly about their website.
well, I felt like it was really sort of carefully curated. There wasn't a ton of products, but they really seemed very concerned about like where things were made and the quality. But the other thing is that on the blog every month they sort of feature a cross-dresser in the month, and that like one month it was someone who has a wife and dresses occasionally and really was just really happy to sort of be able to slide between the gender spectrum. And then the month before that it was somebody who's who totally full-time lives trans life as female, and that there just seemed to be sort of the gamut of it. And I'm being really impressed as I'm learning more about sort of this cross-dress community that there's this spectrum that's really lovely.
It's very hard to pin it down, because when someone first gets into cross-dressing and they sort of really first acknowledge it, and I'm not talking about when they're 7 years old and they take their sister's panties, that's experimenting, and then in the sort of teens or 20s maybe there's a little bit of dressing, but it's perhaps a little later that they really start to see where does this fit with themselves. Now when that happens it can be very confusing, because there's a question, is it a fetish? Is this who I am? Does it mean I'm gay? Ooh, what does it mean? Now, when someone themselves doesn't really have a handle on that, imagine how hard it is for the person writing a website to appeal to a market, because the market itself doesn't even know necessarily where it is. Now, as you say, you know, some of these sites haven't got a massive amount of products, but actually that's not really a problem. It's a question of having the products that are just right. And I think that's an interesting one.
It's sort of like, it's like the basic black sweater. It's like
You gotta have it.
Right, you gotta have it. So it's sort of, can you create a place that, regardless, so that it does appeal to that spectrum.
Well, Glamour Boutique's obviously doing a good job with that.
Yeah.
And there are lots of others that are out there as well. This morning I saw Julia, who is one of our WhatsApp members, in our special WhatsApp group there. Julia had dressed, they looked absolutely spectacular. At the same time, they'd gone online and someone had seen them in an online chat visually, and they were a little concerned that they immediately identified them as male. Now, what I was saying in the chat was that, or what I was seeing there, was that there's an acknowledgement that actually you don't have to pass, but moving towards the femme person, and that's moving down the gender spectrum, that's the comfortable place to be.
I actually saw a kind of a meme recently, and maybe I should try to send it on to you. It was on my Facebook. I do have a lot of transitioning friends, and I want to try to paraphrase this. And what it was is, it's not a trans person's responsibility to fit into your definition of femininity or masculinity.
Right.
It's not my business to pass. It's my business to be me.
Right. So
I don't have to be
sort of
your definition of feminine. I don't have to be your definition of masculine. I just have to be me. Boys can have boobs. Girls can have cocks. Like, it's not my job to fit your definition.
Right.
It's my job to be me and enjoy my body.
If
Period.
if every cross-dresser out there, or no, let's rephrase that slightly. Let's say if every gender fluid person tries to look like a cheerleader, well, that is absolutely playing into the gender binary, isn't it?
And I don't even know if it's about the gender binary. I was really struck by that also, just because it's sort of my, song, Play It Again, is around like fat shaming, right?
Right.
It's not a woman's responsibility to shift her body because society has decided that this is the stylish shape.
Right.
Deal with my body the way that my body presents it, or kiss my ass.
Right, and this does come where this gels very nicely in the Fiona Dobson world is that one of the first things is to drop judgment of others and drop judgment of yourself.
Yeah.
Now, we have no right to judge someone over their weight. I'd be the first to say that. I also know that society doesn't help us with that because
No.
it seems to be a point of fun. It's becoming less so.
Well, but this is the same thing that you end up with, young women getting boob jobs and nose jobs, Jewish girls getting their nose shrunk down, and Asian women getting breast enlargements because that's what a girl is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
So this is it. It's the same rules that say girls need to have boobs this big and a nose this small as the same rule that says that you, Jules, need to look like a cheerleader instead of what you are, which is a beautiful person
Right.
in a skirt.
And that's where I feel most comfortable. I think getting to that place where you can feel just comfortable with, in fact, it is just who you are, isn't it? It's accept who you are.
Yeah.
And to find that place.
Yeah.
Now, sure, if you're walking around with a beard and a giant beer belly and tattoos all up and down your arms, there's a very good chance you may not pass. But then,
pass as
what the hell is pass? Exactly.
Pass as what? You could put on a nun's outfit and you'll pass as the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, and you'll get,
and they are stunning. I mean, if you look at someone
and you'll
like
be
Fancy,
loved. Yeah, and you'll be absolutely loved for being like so.
Precisely.
Fine, do that.
Well, I think part of the nice
Get
thing,
down with your bad self.
part of the nice thing about being around people who are in this sort of
queer
gender
space.
grey area, the
queer space,
the queer space, is that they're almost forced to get to that place in their own head where they're accepting themselves. They're almost forced to let go of the norms and release judgment, and as such, it does actually make them much better people.
Well, I don't know if it makes us better people, but there is something about going into that queer space, and there is this thing of you now have permission to decide.
Right.
And now, unfortunately, there is, now that queer people are getting more and more sort of legal rights, there is sort of this talk around, and there is a lot of things around homonormative behavior. Like, well, now that we can get married and have children, we're expected to, instead of, no, I'm going to continue to be my weird, freaky self.
That's a very dangerous path for people to go down, because the minute they start fitting into those gender norms, who are then the freaks?
Right. Like, I kind of, there's something really lovely about an outsider status, because it does give you permission to stand slightly outside and to observe those things. It is a responsibility then to actually do that with ethics and with morals. You really do have to think.
I have been surprised at how many people who are finding that middle gender space were formerly punks or goth or some rebel.
Yeah.
They are in the counterculture world. And I suppose it does make some sort of sense, because you sort of realize there are systems here that I don't agree with.
Right.
One of which is the gender system of society, which says you are a boy or you are a girl.
Yeah. My first foray into queer life was definitely, shaving my head, dyeing it green, buying a leather jacket, and listening to DOA. Like, this was, I'm stepping out of the beauty myth. Before that, I had been a model in high school, and I just went, wow, being pretty has a heavy price.
Well, your particular journey on that's quite
Well, yeah,
intense.
it has a heavy price. So I went into that counterculture, and then in college I went into the lesbian counterculture and went pretty, women's music festivals, all men are evil, blah blah blah. Then years later, I'm like, well, actually, I am bi, and I'm cool with everybody, but I still definitely consider myself queer.
Well, I
in that
think
way.
it's an ongoing journey, and there are
It is.
different places we find ourselves in different parts of our life.
I
But
think that's the important thing, is that you're allowed to change your mind too.
yeah,
Like, you're allowed to be super duper manly on Tuesdays and super duper femme on Friday, and there's nothing wrong with that.
this is Jules and Lenny,
Ah,
and we're talking to you on the Fiona Dobson YouTube, and you can find us on FionaDobson.com. And you'll also see we've got increasing, really exciting stuff on Patreon at the moment, on the Fiona Dobson Patreon. You can hear a plane going over us at the moment because we're recording this in the middle of a football field.
that'd be soccer field.
Are you trying to be English again? We'll make another one of these soon.
Bye.